I still remember the day my parents shattered my dreams. I was 22, fresh out of business school with honors, eager to step into my rightful place in our family's restaurant empire. Montgomery Family Restaurants was more than just a business, it was my grandfather's legacy. He had built it from a single diner into a successful chain of 50 locations across 3 states. I had worked in those restaurants since I was 14, learning every role, from dishwasher to manager, preparing myself for this moment. Or so I thought. At what I believed was my welcome to the company dinner, my father dropped the bombshell. "The business is going to your sister," he announced over his steak. "Sarah has the right attitude for success." I stared at my plate, my appetite vanishing. Across the table, my 25-year-old sister smirked. She had never worked a single shift in the restaurants, preferring to spend her time shopping and posting about her future CEO life on social media. "But Dad," I protested, my voice unsteady, "I've worked in the restaurants for years. I have a business degree. I know every aspect of." "That's enough, Claire," Mom interrupted, her designer bracelet clinking against her wine glass. "Your sister has natural leadership abilities. You're too." She hesitated, exchanging a glance with Dad. "Simple for this kind of responsibility." Simple? The word stung like a slap. Sarah examined her manicured nails, her voice dripping with condescension. "Let's be honest, you're the type who's happy serving tables. And there's nothing wrong with that. Someone has to do it." I turned to Grandpa Jack, my last hope. He had always been my biggest supporter, teaching me the business side by side in his original diner, but he sat in silence, methodically cutting his steak, his face unreadable. "It's decided," Dad said firmly. "Sarah will take over as CEO next month. You can keep your position as floor manager at the downtown location, if you want." That night, I cried myself to sleep. Years of dedication, countless hours spent in the restaurants, dismissed because I wasn't flashy enough, because I didn't fit their image of success. But the next morning, I went to work as usual, head held high, despite the pitying looks from staff who had already heard the news. Months passed. Sarah's leadership consisted mostly of long lunches, influencer-style posts, and ignoring the advice of experienced managers. Dad backed her every move, even as profits began to slide. Then I met James. He came into my restaurant for lunch and stayed for 3 hours, captivated by my passionate explanation of restaurant operations. Unlike my family, he saw value in my knowledge. A successful tech entrepreneur, he found brilliance in what my parents called simplicity. James became my bright spot in an otherwise difficult time. Within a year, we were engaged. Predictably, my family was unimpressed. "At least she found someone successful," Mom said when we announced our engagement. "Maybe now she'll quit working." "Not likely," Sarah scoffed. "Claire loves being a servant." James squeezed my hand under the table, his touch a silent promise. "They don't see your worth, but I do." We planned a small wedding, nothing like Sarah's extravagant affair the year before, when she had married a politician's son. My parents contributed the bare minimum, just enough to maintain appearances. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and clear. As I got ready in the bridal suite, a courier arrived with a letter. The envelope was thick, the paper expensive, and on the front, in familiar handwriting, were the words, "To be delivered to Claire Montgomery on her wedding day." Grandpa Jack's handwriting. My hands trembled as I tore it open. He had passed away 3 months ago, his death sudden, a heart attack in his sleep. The family had been shocked when Noah was found, just instructions that his lawyers would handle his estate. I took a deep breath and began to read. "My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, 2 things have happened. I'm no longer here, and you're marrying someone you love. I'm sorry I won't be there to walk you down the aisle, but I hope this letter will be my final gift to you." Tears blurred my vision, my heart pounded with every word. "I've watched your parents and sister underestimate you your entire life. They see your kindness as weakness, your attention to detail as simplicity, your hard work as servitude, but I saw something else. I saw myself in you, the same drive, the same understanding of what makes a business truly successful, taking care of your people and your customers. What they don't know is that I never actually transferred ownership of Montgomery Family Restaurants to your father. I maintained majority ownership through a holding company, Eagle Ridge Enterprises. Your father believed he owned everything, but he was always just an employee." I gasped, my hands shaking. Eagle Ridge Enterprises. I had seen the name on documents at work, but I had never thought much about it. "Today, on your wedding day, ownership of Eagle Ridge Enterprises transfers to you, Claire." You are now the majority owner of Montgomery Family Restaurants. Your father, mother, and sister have been employees this whole time, and now they work for you. The letter nearly slipped from my fingers. My wedding dress rustled as I sank into a chair. I couldn't stand watching them crush your spirit, but I needed to be sure you were ready. I needed you to learn humility, to understand every aspect of the business from the ground up. Most importantly, I needed you to find someone who valued you for who you are, not what they could get from you. Show them what real leadership looks like, Claire. Show them what you've always been capable of. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's rising above. All my love, Grandpa Jack. P.S. The board meeting is Monday morning, don't be late, CEO. As if on cue, my phone buzzed, an email from Grandpa's lawyers. The documents were attached: ownership transfer, board meeting agenda, and, most satisfyingly, evidence of Sarah's mismanagement. A knock at the door. Claire, are you ready? James' voice. Something's happening outside, your family's making a scene. I squared my shoulders. Time to show them who they'd underestimated. The moment of reckoning. I stepped into the garden, my wedding dress catching the morning light. Dad looked furious, phone clutched in his hand. Mom smoothed her designer dress, a nervous habit. Sarah's face twisted in disbelief. What's going on? She shrieked. Why are we getting emergency board meeting notifications? Why does it say you're CEO? I held up Grandpa's letter. Would you like to read what Grandpa Jack had to say? Dad snatched it. Mom and Sarah crowded around, their faces paling with every line. This is impossible, Dad whispered, but I saw it, the recognition. He knew it was real. Sarah lunged forward. You tricked Grandpa. James cut in smoothly. Your grandfather was one of the sharpest businessmen around. Are you suggesting he was easily fooled? Or is it more likely he knew exactly what he was doing? Sarah fell silent. I met their eyes, feeling something I never had before: power. The board meeting is Monday at 9 a.m. I expect you all there. I turned to our guests and smiled. But right now, I'm getting married. You'll regret this, Mom warned. You're not ready for this responsibility. I watched them leave, feeling oddly peaceful. James took my hand. We had our wedding, smaller than planned but somehow more perfect. Our guests couldn't stop talking about what they'd witnessed. And I couldn't stop smiling. Monday morning, I arrived at Montgomery Family Restaurants headquarters, dressed professionally, nothing designer like Sarah, but practical. The security guard did a double take before scrambling to open the executive elevator for me. The boardroom was full. Dad sat in the CEO's chair, Sarah beside him, both pretending the weekend hadn't happened. Grandpa's old friends on the board watched with quiet amusement. I walked to the head of the table. You're in my seat, Dad. He started to argue, but Grandpa's friend Mr. Piran stood. Robert, Claire is correct. We've reviewed the documentation. Eagle Ridge Enterprises has always held majority ownership, and Claire is now its sole owner. She's our CEO. Sarah stormed out halfway through. Dad sat through every legal form, his face growing grimmer as the truth set in. He had never truly owned the company. I clicked to the first slide of my presentation. Declining profits, staff turnover, ignored customer complaints. We've lost 15% of regular customers. Staff turnover is up 40%. 3 of our most profitable locations are operating at a loss. The board nodded grimly. I looked each of them in the eye and smiled. Here's my plan to fix it. And just like that, everything changed. I laid out the strategies I'd been refining for years, my voice steady and sure. We're getting back to basics: quality food, exceptional service, and taking care of our people. Every executive will spend 1 week per quarter working in our restaurants, including me. We're reinstating Grandpa's employee education program and expanding it. The board members exchanged approving glances, a few even smiling as I spoke. Even Dad, who had once dismissed me as unfit for leadership, looked surprised by the depth of my understanding. The next few months were intense. I worked harder than ever, visiting every restaurant, meeting with staff, listening to their concerns. James was by my side, using his tech expertise to modernize our systems while ensuring we stayed true to Grandpa's core values. Sarah, of course, tried to fight back, spreading rumors that I'd stolen the company, that I was in over my head, but the truth spoke louder than her lies. Under my leadership, the restaurants began to thrive, sales rebounded, employee morale soared. Mom and Dad kept their distance, watching silently as the company they had nearly lost came back stronger than ever. 6 months later, The real turning point came on an otherwise ordinary evening. I was working a dinner shift at Grandpa's original diner, something I made a habit of, when the door opened, and they walked in. Mom and Dad. They hesitated near the entrance, scanning the bustling restaurant. Every table was full, the energy warm and inviting. Servers moved with confidence, customers lingered, laughing over their meals. I grabbed 2 menus and approached their usual booth. "Welcome to Jack's," I said, keeping my tone even. "Today's special is Grandpa's famous meatloaf." Mom's gaze flickered around the room. "This place looks good," she admitted. "It is good," I replied. "All our locations are. Profits are up 25% from last year. Staff turnover is the lowest it's ever been. We're opening 2 new restaurants next month." Dad cleared his throat. "We were wrong," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "About you. About everything. Your grandfather, he knew exactly what he was doing." I nodded, feeling the familiar weight of keys in my pocket, the same ones Grandpa had given me when I was 14, just a dishwasher dreaming of something bigger. "He taught me that success isn't about looking important," I said. "It's about being important to your people." Mom hesitated. "And Sarah?" I met her gaze evenly. "She's welcome to apply for an entry-level position," I said simply. "Same as anyone else. She'll have to work her way up." They nodded, absorbing the reality of what I had built. I took their orders and walked away, leaving them to process the undeniable truth: their simple daughter had transformed their world. That night, after closing, I sat in Grandpa's old office, my office now, staring at his framed letter on the wall. James entered with 2 mugs of coffee, settling beside me. "Penny for your thoughts?" I smiled, running my fingers over the edge of the frame. "Just thinking about how sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even," I said. "It's about proving them wrong, by being exactly who you always were." James tilted his head. "And who is that?" He already knew the answer. "The girl who started as a dishwasher because she loved this business," I said. "The woman who knows every employee's name. The CEO who still works dinner shifts." I stood, stretching. "Come on, we're hosting the employee scholarship dinner tomorrow, and I want to make Grandpa's famous apple pie for it." As we walked out, I glanced at the original sign hanging in the lobby. Montgomery Family Restaurants, where everyone is family. And for the first time, it felt true. The next morning, I arrived early. Sarah was already there, waiting in the lobby. She looked different. No designer labels, no perfect makeup, just her. In her hands, she held a job application. "I'd like to apply for a server position," she said quietly, "if that's okay." I studied her for a long moment. For the first time, I saw something new in her. Humility. "Training starts Monday at 7 a.m., I said, taking the application. "Don't be late." She nodded. Sometimes, family has to fall apart before it can be rebuilt into something stronger. And sometimes, the person they underestimated the most is the one who puts it all back together. Grandpa had known that all along. And now, finally, so did everyone else.